A heartless billionaire left his 6-year-old twin sons to freeze to death in the Colorado Rockies. Their hearts were failing. The medical bills were crushing his empire, and they were worth $18 million dead. He walked away without looking back. What he didn't know was that a stranger watched from the ridge above. A woman who'd spent years pulling bodies from avalanches and wouldn't let 2 more children become statistics. But 15 years later, the marble floors of Cade Tower gleamed under crystal chandeliers. The Manhattan skyline stretched beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Elijah Cade stood at the center of the executive floor, his silver-streaked hair perfect, his custom suit sharp enough to cut, accepting congratulations for Cade Industries' latest renewable energy breakthrough. The company, built on his son's insurance payout, had become a $12 billion empire. His legacy, his redemption story. The tragic widower who lost everything but kept building. Tonight, he was untouchable. Tonight, he had no idea that the sons he'd abandoned were standing 30 feet away in intern badges, watching him smile for photographers, shake hands with senators, and accept praise for innovation funded by their deaths. They'd changed their names, hacked their way into his company, learned every password, mapped every lie, and in 7 days, they would take him back to those mountains, back to the exact trail where he'd left them to die. What happened there would shatter everything he'd built. And it all started with 2 small navy jackets he thought he'd never see again. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments and what time it is right there. Then don't forget to subscribe to our channel to support the work we do here. Now, let me take you back to where it all started, to a December night in the Rockies, when snow fell like judgment, and a father made a choice that would haunt 3 lives forever. Micah noticed the cold first. Not the December cold that bit at exposed skin, but the cold that came from stillness, from a car engine that had been running but suddenly wasn't. He blinked awake in the back seat. His twin brother Mateo slumped against him, still unconscious from whatever their father had given them before they left the lodge. The medication, Daddy had said. The special medication Dr. Rhodes prescribed. But Micah's head felt wrong, cotton-filled and distant. Through the frosted window, he saw their father standing outside the SUV, breath clouding in sharp bursts, phone pressed to his ear. The man's shoulders were rigid, his free hand clenched into a fist. Micah couldn't hear the words, but he recognized that posture. It was the same one Daddy wore during the bad phone calls, the ones about money and treatments, and how much longer they had. The lodge had been warm. Micah remembered that much through the fog in his head. Logs crackling in a stone fireplace big enough to stand in. Adults in expensive clothes holding wine glasses, laughing about markets and investments. Their father had been smiling that tight smile he wore for cameras, the one that never reached his eyes. Dr. Rhodes had appeared with 2 small cups of liquid, mint-flavored and thick. "For your condition, boys," he'd said, and Daddy had nodded, so they drank it. Mateo made a face. It tasted wrong. Now Mateo wasn't waking up. Micah shook his brother's shoulder. Teo, wake up!" Nothing. Panic crawled up his throat. He pressed his palm against Mateo's chest, feeling for the heartbeat they'd been taught to monitor. There it was. Slower than it should be, but present. Relief flooded through him. The car door opened. Cold air rushed in like a slap. Their father stood there, snowflakes catching in his dark hair, his expression unreadable. "Come on, boys. We're getting some air." "Mateo won't wake up," Micah said. His voice came out smaller than he meant it to. "He'll be fine. The medication makes him sleepy." Their father reached in and lifted Mateo first, cradling him against his chest. The tenderness of the gesture made Micah's confusion deepen.
Then Daddy reached for him. You too, Micah. The world tilted as his father carried them both away from the vehicle, their matching navy jackets the only bright color against the white landscape and dark pines. The snow fell heavier now, thick flakes that caught in Micah's eyelashes and melted on his warm cheeks. He tried to track where they were going, but the trees all looked the same, and his head wouldn't stay clear. They stopped at a small clearing ringed by rocks. Their father set them down, propped them against a boulder that cut the wind slightly. He crouched in front of them, and for a moment, Micah thought he saw something crack in the man's face. Something that looked like pain. Daddy? Micah reached out, his small hand trembling. Elijah Cade caught his son's hand, held it. His jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't swallow. I'm sorry, he finally whispered. I'm so sorry. Then he stood, turned, started walking back toward the trail. Wait! Micah called. The word came out slurred. Where are you going? His father's steps didn't slow. Daddy! Louder now, panic shredding through the medication fog. Don't leave us! Daddy, please! The figure in the expensive coat kept walking, shoulders hunched against the snow. And then the trees swallowed him whole. Micah tried to stand. His legs wouldn't cooperate. He managed to shake Mateo harder, desperate now. Teo, wake up! Please wake up! Daddy left! Daddy left us! Still nothing. Mateo's breathing was shallow, his skin too pale in the dim light. Micah's own chest started to hurt, the familiar tightness that meant his condition was flaring. He fumbled for the emergency inhaler their father always kept in his jacket pocket. It wasn't there. Nothing was there. No phone, no medical supplies, no way to call for help. The cold bit deeper. Micah pulled Mateo
closer, trying to share warmth, his own body heat fading fast. The navy jackets weren't enough. Nothing was enough. The medication pulled at him again, dragging him toward unconsciousness. He fought it. If he fell asleep, they'd die. He knew that with sudden, terrible clarity. Someone, he whispered into the howling wind. Please, someone, help us. Harper Quinn had been tracking the avalanche risk zones for 3 hours when she spotted the vehicle. A black SUV. Expensive. Out of place on a service road that barely anyone knew existed. She'd been doing survey work for the Forest Service since dawn, mapping potential slide paths after the latest storm system. The lodge, half a mile below, had requested updated safety assessments for their high-end clientele. She trained her binoculars on the vehicle. Engine running, exhaust ghosting into the night air. No one inside that she could see. Then movement caught her eye. Footprints in the fresh snow, illuminated by her headlamp's reflection. Adult boot prints, large and deep, leading away from the SUV and into the tree line. And beside them, something that made her blood freeze. 2 sets of tiny prints, child-sized, leading in the same direction, but only 1 set of adult prints coming back. Harper's instincts screamed. She'd spent 8 years in search and rescue before burning out, before the nightmares of the bodies she couldn't save drove her to quieter work. But those instincts never left. She knew what this looked like. She knew what it meant. She moved fast, following the small prints, a radio bouncing against her hip. The trail led deeper into the forest, away from any marked path, away from safety. The prints grew more erratic, smaller, like whoever made them was struggling. Then they stopped. Harper swept her light across the clearing and saw them. 2 small boys in navy jackets, huddled against a rock, motionless. Twins, she realized. Identical. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. Their brown skin was ashen,
their lips tinged blue. She dropped to her knees beside them, fingers flying to check pulses. Weak but present, both alive, barely. "Hey, hey, can you hear me?" She pulled off her heavy parka and wrapped it around them both, then keyed her radio. Static. The storm was interfering with the signal. "Come on, come on!" Nothing but white noise. The nearest medical facility was 40 minutes down the mountain. These boys didn't have 40 minutes. Harper made a decision. She scooped up the first twin, then managed to position the second against her chest, their combined weight nearly buckling her knees. They were small, malnourished looking, despite the expensive clothes. She started moving, each step calculated, her breath coming in harsh gasps. Her cabin was a mile northeast, remote, off-grid, but it had heat and basic medical supplies. It was their only chance. She didn't look back at the clearing, but she memorized it, the location, the tracks, the evidence of what someone had done. Harper
carried the twins through the blizzard, and with every step, her fury grew hotter than the cold could touch. The twins were alive when Harper kicked open her cabin door, but barely. She laid them on the couch near the wood stove, cranking the heat, her hands shaking as she peeled off their wet clothes. Their skin was ice. Hypothermia. Stage 2, maybe 3. She'd seen it before in Lost Hikers. She knew the protocols. Warm blankets, no direct heat, monitor breathing, slow re-warming. She worked on autopilot, the training taking over. Wrapped them in her sleeping bag, elevated their legs, checked pupils. Both boys were unconscious, but breathing steadily now. The smaller one, the one who'd been partially awake when she found them, had tried to speak. His words were slurred, confused. "Daddy left," he'd mumbled. "He left us." Harper's jaw tightened. She grabbed her satellite phone and tried the ranger station again. This time the call connected. "This is Harper Quinn, coordinates Echo 72. I've got 2 minors, hypothermic, approximately 6 years old. Twins. Found abandoned on the Ridgeline Trail service road." The voice on the other end crackled. "Copy that, Harper. We've got a search initiated for 2 missing children from the Aspen Summit Lodge. Reported by Father Elijah Cade, approximately 40 minutes ago. Boys are Micah and Mateo Cade, age 6. Medical conditions listed as critical. Weather's got the chopper grounded. Can you stabilize until morning?" Harper's hand tightened on the phone. "He reported them missing?" "Affirmative. Says they wandered off during a walk. Lodge staff confirms family was there for a corporate retreat." The lie was smooth, professional. Harper closed her eyes and saw the tracks again. 1 adult going in, 1 adult coming out. No child tracks returning. These kids didn't wander anywhere. They were left. Silence on the line. Then, carefully. "That's a serious allegation." "I know what I saw." "We'll note it in the report. Can you keep them stable?" Harper looked at the twins, their small faces finally gaining color. "Yeah, I can keep them stable." "Good. We'll have emergency services at your location by 0700. Cade's got a medical team standing by." Harper ended the call. Medical team standing by. Of course he did. Billionaire father, critically ill children. A tragedy that could be spun any direction, depending on who controlled the narrative. She pulled up the cabin's ancient laptop and searched the name. Elijah Cade. The results flooded in. Renewable energy magnate. Net worth estimated at $8 billion. Widower. Wife died in childbirth, delivering the twins. The boys suffered from Ambrose-Kettering syndrome, a rare metabolic disorder. Treatments cost millions annually. Recent financial reports showed Cade Industries under pressure, stock values dropping, investor confidence shaky. Then she found the insurance documentation. Public record, buried in a business filing.
life insurance policies on both.
Children, updated 6 months ago. 18 million combined payout. Beneficiary, Cade Industries. Harper's stomach turned.
She clicked through more articles, finding mentions of Dr. Isaiah Rhodes, Elijah's personal physician. More searching revealed Rhodes had been investigated twice for medical fraud, but never charged. The most recent investigation involved questionable prescriptions for sedatives. The pieces assembled themselves like a nightmare. Father under financial pressure. Critically ill children draining resources. Insurance policies. A convenient accident during a snowstorm where bodies might not be found until spring. A doctor willing to provide sedatives. And a man who reported his children missing after walking away from them in a blizzard. This wasn't negligence. This was planned. Harper looked at the twins again. Micah stirred, his eyelids fluttering. She moved to his side, touching his forehead gently. "Hey, sweetheart. You're safe now." His eyes opened, brown and deep and full of confusion. "Where's Daddy?" "He's not here right now. He left us." The words came out flat, like Micah was testing them, trying to understand. "Why did he leave us?" Harper had no answer that wouldn't break him further. "I don't know, honey, but you're safe. I promise." Mateo woke an hour later, more agitated than his brother.
"I want to go home. Where's Daddy? I feel sick."
Harper checked them both, her nurse training from her army days kicking in. Both showed signs of their condition, the metabolic disorder that was slowly killing them. Micah was calmer, but his breathing was labored. Mateo had tremors. They needed medication, proper care, specialists. But if she handed them back, she'd be sending them to their deaths. The radio crackled at dawn. "Harper, this is base. We've got weather clearing. EMS is en route to your location. ETA 30 minutes. Harper stared at the radio, then at the twins, who were eating oatmeal, still confused but alive. Micah had taken her hand earlier and held it like a lifeline. Mateo had fallen asleep against her shoulder. She thought about the tracks in the snow, the man walking away, the insurance policies, the convenient narrative. She thought about every body she'd pulled from avalanches during her rescue years, every person she'd been too late to save. Not this time. Harper grabbed her emergency pack and started loading supplies. Food, medication, first aid. The twins watched her, uncertain.
"Are we going home?"
Mateo asked. "We're going somewhere safe," Harper said. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. She dressed them in warm clothes from the donation box she kept for emergencies, destroyed their identifying navy jackets in the wood stove, and carried them to her truck. The radio crackled again. She turned it off. By the time EMS arrived at her cabin, Harper Quinn was already 3 hours east, driving toward Wyoming with 2 boys who were legally dead, and a choice that would define the rest of her life. She'd stolen
them. Kidnapped them, technically, but she'd also saved them from a man who tried to murder them for profit. The law wouldn't see it her way. The law would side with the billionaire father, the grieving widower, the man with lawyers and power, and a story already crafted. So Harper drove, and as the mountains disappeared behind them, she made another decision. Micah and Mateo Cade were dead, lost to the Rockies, presumed victims of a tragic accident. But Micah and Mateo Quinn were just being born. Atlanta's summer heat was nothing like Colorado's thin mountain air, but Harper chose it specifically for that reason. Distance, anonymity, a city large enough to disappear in, southern enough that people minded their business if you kept to yourself. She found a rental house in Clarkston,
a refugee community east of downtown where nobody asked too many questions about a white woman raising two black boys alone. The story she told was simple. Widowed, adopting her late husband's nephews after a family tragedy. She had the forged documents to back it up, courtesy of contacts from her rescue days who owed her favors and didn't ask why. Birth certificates listing her as guardian, medical records she'd altered with enough truth mixed in to pass inspection. The boy's condition required specialized care, she explained to their new doctors. She had the treatment protocols memorized, the medication schedules downloaded, the emergency procedures practiced. What she couldn't fake was the money. The twins needed enzyme therapy monthly, dietary supplements daily, regular cardiology monitoring. Her savings evaporated in 6 months. She took 3 jobs, morning shifts at a climbing gym, afternoon work as a medical transcriber, night security at a warehouse. Sleep became theoretical. She ran on coffee and adrenaline and the memory of 2 small boys reaching for a father who walked away. Micah and Mateo adjusted slowly. The first year was hardest. Night terrors plagued them both. Micah would wake screaming about snow and darkness and a man's retreating back. Mateo developed separation anxiety so severe he'd vomit if Harper left his sight. They didn't remember their father clearly. The trauma and sedatives had blurred those memories, but their bodies remembered abandonment. Harper held them through every nightmare. "You're safe. I've got you. Always." The bond between the twins was something beyond normal sibling closeness. They developed their own language of glances and touches. When Micah's chest tightened with a cardiac episode, Mateo would feel phantom pain in his own chest and call for help before Micah could speak. When Mateo had night terrors, Micah would wake simultaneously and talk him down with a calm that seemed supernatural. Harper watched them finish each other's sentences, reach for each other in sleep, and share dreams that left them both shaken. "It's the snow dream again," Micah told her when he was 8, his voice too old for his age. "We're lying
On the ground, and someone's walking away. But we can't see his face."
Harper's throat tightened. "It's just a dream, baby."
It doesn't feel like just a dream. It feels like a memory.
She changed the subject. She always changed the subject. The boys thrived despite the poverty, despite the medical challenges, despite everything working against them. Micah discovered mathematics the way some kids discovered sports. By age 10, he was solving calculus problems for fun, hacking into Harper's laptop to teach himself coding, building programs that made their bills easier to track. His teachers called him gifted. Harper called him her miracle. Mateo discovered art. He painted murals on their bedroom walls that Harper didn't have the heart to stop. Explosions of color that captured emotion in ways words couldn't. He was fierce where Micah was calm, loud where Micah was quiet. The fire to his twin's water. But his art revealed a darkness underneath. Shadows that crept into corners, figures turning away, children reaching toward nothing. "Why do you always paint people leaving?" Harper asked once, watching him work on a canvas depicting a forest at twilight. Mateo's brush stilled. "I don't know. It just feels right." They helped however they could. At 13, Micah started fixing computers for neighbors, charging $20 a repair. Mateo sold small paintings at the Decatur Farmers Market. They tutored younger kids, mowed lawns, did anything to ease the burden they knew Harper carried. They never complained about their medication routines or dietary restrictions, or the times Harper came home exhausted and fell asleep in her work clothes. You gave up your life for us, Micah said one evening, his teenage voice cracking. Why? Harper looked at the boys, now gangly teenagers with bright eyes and sharp minds, and souls too beautiful for what had nearly happened to them. Because you're worth it. Because you deserved someone who wouldn't walk away. But Harper was aging fast. The stress, the work, the constant vigilance, in case anyone connected the dots between her boys and the Cade twins who'd vanished 15 years ago. Her hands shook sometimes. She'd developed high blood pressure. Her hair had gone fully grey by 45. The boys noticed. They always noticed. We need to do more, Mateo insisted. You're killing yourself for us. I'm fine. You're not. Micah's quiet voice was harder to argue with than Mateo's fire. We're old enough to know what's happening, and we're smart enough to help. They pushed harder. Micah's coding skills evolved from hobby to professional level. At 15, he was making $200 a week doing freelance web development. Mateo's art found an audience online. His dark forest paintings selling for $50, then $100, then $300 apiece. They opened a joint account Harper didn't know about, squirreling away money for emergencies, for the medical bills that never stopped coming, for the
future they wanted to build. But the past was coming for them. They just didn't know it yet. It started with Micah's habit of reading news obsessively, his analytical mind always processing information. He had Google alerts set for medical research about their condition, always looking for breakthroughs, new treatments, anything that might help. One Saturday in November, an alert pinged that changed everything. Cade Industries commemorates 15th anniversary of founder's personal tragedy. Micah clicked the article absently, expecting another story about renewable energy innovation. Instead, he found a photo. Two small boys in navy jackets, their brown skin radiant against a winter background. The caption read, Micah and Mateo Cade, lost to the Rockies in 2010. The world stopped spinning. Micah stared at the faces, identical, mirror images. His hand started shaking. He zoomed in on the photo. The boy on the left had a small birthmark near his left ear. Micah touched his own ear, feeling the familiar mark he'd had since birth. Mateo, he called, his voice strange and distant. Mateo, come here, now! Mateo heard something in Micah's voice that made him drop his paintbrush and run. He found his twin staring at the laptop screen, face ashen, trembling. What's wrong? Is it your heart? Look. Micah turned the laptop. Look at this. Mateo looked. The photo might as well have been a mirror. Two boys with their faces, their eyes, their exact features 15 years younger. He felt something crack open in his chest. A sealed door he didn't know existed, suddenly blown open by a wind that tasted like snow and pine and terror. That's us, Mateo whispered. That's us, Micah confirmed. They read the article together, standing frozen in their shared bedroom. Elijah Cade, founder and CEO of Cade Industries, still honored the memory of his twin sons, lost during a family retreat in the Colorado Rockies in December 2010. The boys, 6 years old at the time, had wandered from their lodging during a severe snowstorm. Despite extensive search efforts, they were never found. Cade had established a memorial foundation in their honor, funding pediatric medical research. The tragedy had merely destroyed him, the article claimed, but he'd rebuilt his empire in his son's memory. Mateo's hands clenched into fists. We didn't wander. We didn't wander anywhere. The dreams, Micah said, his analytical mind already processing. The snow. The man walking away.
They weren't just dreams. They were memories. The twins looked at each other, and in that moment, they felt the connection between them crystallize into something sharper than comfort. They were remembering together, fragments assembling like shattered glass, reforming into a terrible picture. A car ride, medication that tasted wrong, waking up in the cold, reaching out, crying for someone who didn't turn around. "Harper," Mateo said. "Harper knows." They found her in the kitchen, preparing dinner, humming along to the radio.
She looked tired, her face lined with exhaustion, but she smiled when she saw them.
"Hey, boys. Hungry?" "Who are we?" Micah asked. No preamble, no gentleness, just the question that mattered. Harper's smile died. The wooden spoon in her hand clattered against the pot. "What? Who are we?" Mateo held up his phone, the article displayed. "Is this us?" The color drained from Harper's face. She gripped the counter, her knuckles white. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want answers. Mateo, please, sit down." They sat. Harper did too, her hands shaking as she clasped them on the table. She looked older suddenly, every year of stress and secrets etched into her features. "Yes, that's you." The confirmation hit like a physical blow. Mateo made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. Micah just stared, his mind racing through implications faster than he could process them. "You kidnapped us. I saved you. You stole us from our father. I saved you from your father." Harper's voice hardened. "That man tried to kill you. Both of you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mateo shook his head. No, that's insane. Why would—" "Money." Micah's voice was flat. His fingers were already moving, pulling up his laptop, searching. "Why else? We were sick. Expensive. There had to be insurance." His search results loaded. He found it in minutes. The public filings from Cade Industries' 2010 financial disclosures. 18 million. We were worth 18 million, dead. Harper's eyes filled with tears. "I found you in the snow. He'd given you sedatives and left you there to freeze. I followed the tracks. I saw the evidence. He walked away and never looked back." "And you didn't tell anyone?" Mateo's voice shook. "You didn't report it. You just took us. Who would have believed me? A mountain guide accusing a billionaire of attempted murder with nothing but footprints in the snow? He had lawyers, power, a story already prepared. You think the system would have protected you?" Harper's voice broke. "I've seen how this works. Money wins. Always. I wasn't going to let you die while courts debated." Micah kept searching, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He found everything. The news coverage from 2010, the search efforts that lasted exactly 3 days before being called off due to weather, the memorial service Elijah held 6 months later, the foundation established in their names, the stock prices that stabilized after the insurance payout hit, the business expansion that turned Cade Industries from a struggling startup into a billion-dollar empire. Their deaths had built that empire. "He used us," Mateo said. "Our insurance money. He used it to save his company." "And then he became a hero," Micah added, clicking through media profiles. "The grieving father who turned tragedy into purpose.
Look at this. He gives speeches about overcoming loss and honoring
Memory. His voice turned bitter. He built an entire brand on killing us.
Harper reached for them, but Mateo pulled back.
Why didn't you tell us?
When? Harper's voice rose.
When you were 7 and having nightmares? When you were 10 and finally felt safe? When you were 13 and learning to be happy?
Tears streamed down her face.
I was going to tell you when you were 18, when you were adults and could decide what to do with the truth.
That's not your choice to make,
Mateo snapped.
I made it anyway. Because you were children. My children. And I protected you the only way I knew how.
Micah closed his laptop. His face was unreadable, that analytical mask he wore when emotions threatened to overwhelm him. What happened to the insurance money? The $18 million? Harper pulled up records she'd been tracking for years, her own investigation that never stopped. Cade Industries mostly, expansion into wind energy, acquisition of 3 smaller companies, executive bonuses. And this. She highlighted a transaction. $12 million paid to Victor Hale, listed as strategic consulting fees. Who's Victor Hale? His advisor, the man who was with him at the lodge. I've been trying to find connections between them and Dr. Rhodes, the physician who prescribed your sedatives. Harper's voice hardened. This wasn't just your father. This was planned, coordinated. Mateo stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need air. He walked out. Micah stayed, staring at the laptop screen, at the photo of himself as a child, at the man whose smile in every article felt like a knife. He has to pay, Micah said quietly. The statute of limitations. I don't care about legal justice. Micah looked at Harper, and she saw something cold in his eyes, something she'd never seen before. He tried to kill us. He took our insurance money and built an empire on our corpses. He gets to be a hero while we've spent 15 years running and hiding and suffering. His voice dropped to a whisper. He has to pay. Harper had known this moment would come eventually. She dreaded it, prepared for it, hoped to delay it. But looking at Micah's face, at the righteous fury burning behind his calm exterior, she knew the time for protection was over. What are you going to do? Micah's smile was sharp enough to cut. I'm going to give him exactly what he gave us. I'm going to take everything he built and burn it to ashes. And then I'm going to make sure the whole world knows what he did. The twins didn't speak to Harper for 3 days. They holed up in their room, laptops glowing, researching obsessively. Mateo would rage, pacing and muttering about revenge. Micah would go silent for hours, his fingers flying across keyboards, diving deeper into systems that were supposed to be secure. On the 4th day, they emerged with a plan. We need to get inside Cade Industries, Micah announced at breakfast. Physical access, employee credentials,
Internal networks. Harper set down her coffee. You're 16. We'll be 18 in 6 months, Mateo countered. Old enough for internships. You can't just walk into his company. He'll recognize you. Will he? Micah pulled up comparison photos. The boys from 2010, round-faced and 6 years old, next to current photos of the twins at 16, lean and teenage angular. Their faces had changed, matured, lost the baby softness. Their hair was different, styled in modern cuts. 15 years was a lifetime. We were toddlers when he last saw us, and he thinks we're dead. People see what they expect to see. Mateo added. Plus, we'd be applying as technical interns. He probably doesn't even look at intern applications. That's HR work. Harper wanted to argue,
But she'd spent 15 years watching these boys survive impossible situations. They were brilliant, resourceful, and driven by a purpose she couldn't deny was justified. What exactly are you planning? Phase 1. Infiltration, Micah said. We apply for summer internships using our Quinn identities. We've got the grades, the skills, the portfolio. Cade Industries loves young talent, especially in their tech division. We get hired. We gain access. Phase 2. Investigation, Matteo continued. We gather evidence, financial records, communications, anything connecting Elijah Cade and Victor Hale to what happened in 2010. We find proof that can't be dismissed. Phase 3. Exposure, Micah finished. We don't just accuse him. We destroy him. With facts, with documentation, with irrefutable evidence that he tried to murder his own children for insurance money. Harper studied them. And if you can't find proof, if he covered his tracks too well? The twins exchanged a look. Then we move to phase 4, Matteo said darkly. Confession. You're going to make him confess to attempted murder. We're going to make him face what he did, Micah corrected. One way or another. Harper should have stopped them. Should have called a lawyer, gone to the police, tried legal channels. But she'd seen how power worked, how money insulated people like Elijah Cade from consequences. And she'd spent 15 years fighting for these boys. She wasn't going to stop them from fighting for themselves. If you're doing this, she said carefully, you do it smart. No emotional decisions, no revenge fantasies. You gather evidence, you build a case, and you do it so carefully that he never sees you coming. Micah smiled. That's the plan. The investigation consumed the next year. The twins turned 17 and graduated early, their exceptional grades and test scores making them attractive candidates for competitive programs. They crafted careful applications to Cade Industries' summer internship program, emphasizing Micah's coding expertise and Matteo's business acumen and design skills. They used their Quinn identities, with Harper listed as their guardian. Everything was legal, documented, clean. They got
the interviews in January. Both performed flawlessly, answering technical questions with ease, demonstrating skills beyond their years. The hiring manager seemed impressed. You boys are talented. Where'd you develop these skills? Self-taught, mostly, Micah said. We've always been interested in how systems work, how to make them better, or how to break them when necessary. He added the last part with a smile that seemed like a joke. The manager laughed. We need that kind of thinking. Welcome to Cade Industries. While waiting for the internships to start, the twins dug deeper from the outside. Micah hacked carefully, using methods that left no traces, accessing public records and poorly secured databases. He found communications between Elijah Cade and Victor Hale from late 2010. Emails discussing resolving the financial burden and permanent solutions to ongoing liabilities. They're not explicit enough, Micah said, frustrated. Everything's coded language. Good lawyers would argue it's about business expenses. What about the doctor? Matteo asked. Dr. Rhodes prescribed the sedatives. Micah searched. Dr. Isaiah Rhodes had left Cade's employ in 2011, relocated to the Cayman Islands, and lived comfortably on what appeared to be consulting fees paid by offshore accounts. He was paid off, probably gave them just enough deniability. They needed more. They needed the kind of evidence that only came from inside the company, from personal files and private communications that couldn't be accessed remotely. They needed to be physically inside Cade Tower. Trusted employees with access to restricted systems. In May,
2 months before their internship started, Mateo found something that changed everything. An archived news article from a local Colorado paper, one that hadn't made national news. A ranger named Tom Brightwater had been interviewed about the Cade twins case. Something felt off, he'd said. The father reported them missing, but when we asked about the boys' typical behavior, he couldn't answer basic questions. Didn't know their favorite activities, couldn't describe their personalities. And the timeline was strange. He said they wandered off during a walk, but the lodge staff didn't remember seeing them go outside. The articles noted that Brightwater had been reassigned to administrative duties shortly after making those statements. A small note added that he'd resigned from the Forest Service 6 months later. They silenced him, Mateo said. Micah was already searching. Tom Brightwater, now 62, living in Boulder, Colorado, working as a private investigator. We need to talk to him. They called using a burner phone, explaining carefully who they were, what they'd discovered. Brightwater listened in silence. When they're finished, he said, "I knew something was wrong. I knew it. But nobody wanted to investigate a billionaire, and offering a ranger with a hunch." His voice grew rough. "You boys are really them? Really?"
The Cade twins.
"We are."
Then I'll help you. I still have my notes from that investigation, things that never made it into the official report. And I know someone else who might talk. Harper Quinn, the guide who reported finding you, then disappeared. He paused. You know where she is? She's our mother, Micah said quietly. She saved us. Brightwater's voice softened. Then she's a hero, and I'll do everything I can to help you finish what she started. They had an ally now. Someone with official credentials who'd witnessed the cover-up. Someone whose testimony would carry weight. The pieces were assembling. The twins started their internships in June, walking through the glass doors of Cade Tower in Manhattan like they belonged there. They wore visitor badges that would soon become employee IDs. They smiled at security guards, made small talk with other interns, and projected nothing but eager professionalism. And on their second day, standing in the elevator heading to the tech floor, they saw him. Elijah Cade stepped in on the 40th floor, flanked by executives. He wore a charcoal suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding immediate respect. He glanced at the interns in the corner, his gaze passing over them without recognition or interest. Micah felt Mateo's hand grip his wrist tightly, their twin connection screaming with shared fury. But neither moved, neither spoke. They just watched their father, the man who'd tried to kill them, the man who'd built an empire on their deaths, ride up 3 more floors and exit without ever knowing his sons were standing 2 feet away. The elevator doors closed. Phase 2 begins, Micah whispered. The argument happened 3 weeks into the internship, when the twins came home with stolen access credentials and a plan to infiltrate Elijah's personal files. Absolutely not, Harper said. You're committing federal crimes. What you're describing is corporate espionage, identity theft, computer fraud. They'll put you in prison. Only if we get caught, Micah said calmly. And if you get caught, you lose everything. Your futures, your freedom, your lives. Harper's voice rose. This isn't worth it. Mateo's face hardened. He tried to murder us. You're saying that's not worth risking something for? I'm saying revenge isn't worth your lives. This isn't revenge, Micah insisted.
This is justice. There's a difference. Not to a court, there isn't. Not when you've obtained evidence illegally. Harper ran her hands through her gray hair, exhausted. I know you're angry. God knows you have every right to be angry, but this path you're on, it destroys you before it touches him. So what? Mateo demanded. We just let him win? Let him keep being a hero while we hide? We've survived, Harper said. That's winning. You're alive, you're healthy, you're brilliant. You have futures ahead of you. Don't throw that away for a man who doesn't deserve the power you're giving him. Micah
Stood, his movements precise and controlled. You gave up your life for us. You worked yourself to exhaustion. You still have medical debt you'll probably never pay off, all because you saved us from him. His voice was steady, but tears gathered in his eyes. Don't you want him to answer for that, for what he cost you? I want you safe, Harper whispered. That's all I've ever wanted. We can't be safe while he's out there, Mateo said. Don't you see? Every day he walks free is another day he wins. Another day the world thinks he's a hero. Another day those insurance millions sit in his accounts. He murdered us, Harper. On paper, legally, we're dead. And he profited from it. Harper looked at her boys, these children she'd raised, these young men who'd grown too fast under the weight of an impossible truth. She'd tried so hard to give them normal childhoods, to shield them from the darkness of their origin. But the darkness had found them anyway, and now they were choosing to walk into it, willingly. If you do this, she said carefully, you do it knowing you might lose. He's powerful. He has resources you can't imagine, and if you expose yourselves, if you reveal who you are, there's no going back. Your lives as Micah and Mateo Quinn end. Everything we've built ends. Then it ends, Mateo said, but at least it ends with the truth. Harper turned to Micah, the quieter twin, the one who thought before he acted. You really think you can do this? You think you can take down a man like Elijah Cade? Micah met her gaze. I know I can access his systems. I know I can find the evidence. The question is whether we'll have the courage to use it when the time comes. And if he destroys you first? Then we go down fighting, Mateo answered. But we don't run anymore. We're done hiding. Harper recognized the finality in their voices. She'd heard it before, in her own voice, the night she decided to take them from that cabin instead of returning them to authorities. The sound of a line being crossed, a decision made that couldn't be unmade. Tell me everything you found, she said quietly, and I'll help you find the rest. The twins shared a look of surprise. You're helping us? I'm protecting you, Harper corrected, which means making sure if you're going to do something dangerous and probably illegal, you at least do it smart. She pulled out her own laptop. Now show me what you've got. What they had was substantial. Micah had accessed Cade Industries' internal communications network, filtering through years of emails between Elijah and Victor Hale. Most were business-related, but buried in the archives were coded conversations from 2010. Look at this. Micah pulled up an email dated December 10th, 2010, 3 days before the twins were abandoned. Victor to
Weather forecast looks favorable for your timeline. Natural causes will be assumed. Insurance documentation is
prepared. Elijah's response: proceed as discussed. Make it look natural. Harper felt sick reading it. This is a smoking gun. It's close, Micah said, but any good lawyer would argue the matter could mean anything. We need something more explicit. Something that directly references the boys, the insurance, the intent. They found it 2 weeks later. A digital voice memo archived in Victor Hale's personal files on the company server, recorded December 12th, 2010, the day before the abandonment. Victor's voice, calm and businesslike. Elijah, this confirms our discussion regarding the twin situation. Dr. Rhodes has prepared the sedatives. The dosage will render them unconscious for approximately 4 hours, giving you time to position them at the predetermined location. Weather conditions are optimal. Temperature will drop to -15 tonight. Hypothermia will occur naturally. The search will be called off due to storm conditions. Insurance payout processes in 30 days. Total value $18 million, split as agreed. This solves the medical expense drain and stabilizes the company. Are we clear? A pause. Then Elijah's voice, strained but determined. We're clear. The recording ended. The three of them sat in silence. Harper's hands shook. Mateo looked like he might vomit. Micah's face was carved from stone. "That's it," Harper whispered. "That's everything we need." "No," Micah said. "That's everything we need to prove what he did. But it doesn't prove who we are. We need DNA evidence, medical records, something that definitively connects us to those dead boys." "Your medical records from before," Harper said. "The ones from when you were born. Hospital files, genetic testing they did for your condition. Those would match current DNA tests." "Can you access them?" "Not without revealing who I am. The moment I request Micah and Mateo Cade's medical files, alarms go off." Harper thought hard. "But there's another way. Your mother's medical records, the genetic testing they did during pregnancy, those files would show both her DNA and yours. They'd prove genetic lineage." "Where are those files?" "Columbia Presbyterian in Manhattan. That's where the twins were born." Harper pulled up the hospital's system. "I can't hack this. It's too secure." Micah smiled grimly. "But I can." It took him 3 days. 3 days of careful intrusion, layer by layer, until he accessed the archived medical records from 2004. Alessandra Cade's pregnancy file. Genetic screening results for both fetuses. DNA sequences that matched Micah and Mateo Quinn perfectly. They had everything now. The voice memo proving intent to murder, the genetic records proving identity, financial records showing the insurance fraud, testimony from Tom Brightwater about the suspicious circumstances. "What now?" Mateo asked. Micah closed his laptop. "Now we set the trap. Cade Industries is planning their annual leadership retreat. Where do you think they're going?" Harper pulled up the company's internal calendar. The answer was written right there. Aspen Summit Lodge, Colorado, December 13th to 15th, 2025. The same lodge, the same location. 15 years to the day. "He's going back," Mateo whispered. "He's going back to where he killed us." "Then so are we,"
Micah said. We're going to make him face what he did, in the exact place he did it, with witnesses, with evidence, with the whole world watching. Harper looked at her sons, these boys she'd raised, these young men planning something that might save them or destroy them. This is really happening. This is really happening, Micah confirmed. We're going home. The twins spent the summer embedding themselves deeper into Cade Industries. They were model interns, punctual, skilled, eager. Micah worked in the cybersecurity division, supposedly learning defensive protocols. Actually, he was mapping every system, every backdoor, every vulnerability in the company's digital infrastructure. Matteo worked in public relations, learning the company's narrative strategies. Actually, he was studying how Elijah controlled his image, manipulated media, crafted the hero story. They saw their father regularly now, brief encounters in hallways, company meetings, presentations. Each time felt surreal. Elijah would walk past without recognition, sometimes offering a distant nod to interns, usually absorbed in conversations with executives. Once, he stopped Micah in the corridor. You're one of the summer techs, right? Micah's heart hammered. Yes, sir. Micah Quinn. Good work on the firewall audit. Your supervisor showed me your report. Very thorough. Elijah's smile was thin, professional. Keep it up. Thank you, sir. Elijah walked away. Micah stood frozen, feeling Matteo's panic through their connection, even though his twin was 3 floors away. Later, Matteo found him in the bathroom, shaking. He talked to you. He complimented my work, Micah said. He looked right at me and didn't see anything. The anger was sharp enough to choke on. He killed us, and he doesn't even remember our faces. We were 6 years old. We look different. We look exactly like his dead wife, Micah snapped. Harper showed us the photos. We have her eyes, her face shape, her expressions. He just doesn't look long enough to notice, because we're beneath his attention. We're just interns, nameless, unimportant. Matteo gripped his brother's shoulders. Good. Let him underestimate us. Let him not look too close. It makes what's coming even better. They learned everything about their father that summer. His routines, his patterns, his relationships. They learned he was respected but not liked, feared but not loved. Employees spoke of him in careful turns, always measuring their words. He demanded perfection, tolerated no failure, and showed no mercy to those who disappointed him. They learned he'd never remarried, never had other children. The twins' deaths had apparently left him too broken, according to
the company law. In reality, they suspected he simply couldn't risk more expensive medical conditions, more potential liabilities. They learned Victor Hale was still his right hand, still the man who stood behind every major decision. Hale was smooth, charming, and radiated calculated menace. The twins avoided him carefully. Unlike Elijah, Hale noticed things. Hale studied people. Getting too close to him meant risking exposure. In August, their internship ended with job offers. We'd like you both to continue part-time during your senior year, the HR director said, and full-time positions after graduation. We see real potential. They accepted. Of course they accepted. September arrived. The twins started their senior year while maintaining their positions at Cade Industries. The double life was exhausting, but necessary. They needed to remain embedded, trusted, invisible, until the moment was right. In October, the corporate retreat announcement went out. Leadership Retreat 2025, Aspen Summit Lodge, December 13 through 15. All senior staff and select junior personnel invited. Matteo and Micah were on the list.
junior tech staff and PR assistants, brought along to handle logistics and support. They'd be in the mountains, at the lodge, on the exact anniversary. He doesn't even realize, Matteo said, staring at the invitation. 15 years to the day, and he's going back like it's nothing. Maybe he goes every year, Micah suggested. Maybe it's his way of proving he won, standing at the place where he committed murder and facing no consequences. Harper helped them prepare. She contacted Tom Brightwater, the former ranger, who agreed to be in Colorado during the retreat. "I'll be ready," he promised. "Just tell me when." They planned meticulously. Micah would bring portable servers containing all the evidence: the voice memo, the financial records, the genetic tests. Matteo would prepare a presentation, something that looked like a company project, but would actually be their revelation. They'd wait for the right moment, probably the final night's dinner when all leadership was assembled. Then they'd show the world who Elijah Cade really was. November brought unexpected complications. Victor Hale started paying attention to Micah. "You're very skilled for your age," he said one afternoon, appearing in the tech lab. "Self-taught, your file says." "Yes, sir. Just passionate about systems." "Where did you grow up?" The question felt loaded. "Atlanta area. My brother and I were raised by our aunt after our parents died." "I'm sorry to hear that. Family tragedy is difficult." Hale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "What were your parents' names?" Micah's pulse quickened. This was dangerous territory. "They died when we were young. I don't remember much about them." "But you must remember their names." Davis and Sarah Quinn. The names Harper had invented, backed by forged death certificates that would hold up to basic scrutiny, but not deep investigation. "Car?"
Accident. We were 3. Hale nodded slowly. "And you and your brother are twins?" "Yes, sir." "Interesting. Mr. Cade had twins. Did you know that?" "I've heard the story. Very tragic." "Yes." Hale studied Micah for another long moment. "Well, keep up the excellent work." He walked away, leaving Micah cold with dread. That night, Micah told Matteo about the conversation. "He's suspicious." "Did he say anything direct?" "No, but the questions weren't casual. He was probing." They told Harper. Her face paled. "You need to be more careful. If Hale digs into your backgrounds..." "He'll find the Quinn identities are solid," Micah said. "You made sure of that. But if he goes deeper, starts looking at facial recognition, starts comparing photos..." "Then you move up the timeline," Harper said firmly. "Don't wait for December. Do it now." "No." Matteo's voice was hard. "It has to be there, in the mountains, where he did it. That's the only justice that matters." "Justice won't matter if you're dead," Harper snapped. "If Hale realizes who you are..." "He won't. We'll be careful. We'll avoid him. 6 more weeks. That's all we need." 6 weeks. The longest 6 weeks of their lives. The twins moved through November like ghosts, avoiding Hale, maintaining their covers, counting down days. The evidence was compiled. The presentation was ready. Tom Brightwater confirmed his position. Harper made them promise to wear wire recordings, to document everything, to have escape routes. "This is the most dangerous thing you've ever done," she said. "Promise me you'll be smart." "We promise," they lied. Because smart would mean backing down, and they were far past that point. December arrived with New York snow and creeping dread. The corporate retreat was days away. Micah and Matteo packed carefully: professional clothes, technical equipment,
And, hidden in Micah's laptop case, the portable drive containing evidence that would destroy a billionaire. The night before they left, Harper held them both.
I'm proud of you. No matter what happens, I'm proud of who you've become. We love you, Mom,
Micah whispered. They rarely called her Mom, but tonight it felt necessary. Tonight felt like goodbye.
Come back to me,
Harper said.
both of you. Come home.
We will, Mateo promised. After we finish this. They flew to Colorado on December 12th, landing in Denver and taking a shuttle to Aspen. The mountains rose around them, white-peaked and majestic, and full of ghosts. Neither twin had been back since the night Harper carried them away. Do you remember it? Mateo asked quietly.
Pieces. The cold. The fear. His back walking away.
Micah pressed his hand against the window. I remember thinking we were going to die. I remember being certain of it. We didn't die. No, we didn't. The shuttle pulled up to Aspen's Summit Lodge, the same luxury resort where Elijah Cade had stayed 15 years ago. Same wooden beams, same stone fireplace, same mountain views. The twins walked
inside, and memory crashed over them like an avalanche. They'd been here. Right here. Small and sick and trusting their father, who'd brought them to this beautiful place, and then taken them into the snow.
Gentlemen, welcome. A coordinator greeted them. You must be our junior staff. Your rooms are ready. Dinner is at 7. Mr. Cade likes to give an opening speech. Perfect, Micah said, his voice steady despite the shaking in his hands. We're looking forward to it. The trap was set. The prey was gathering. And in 3 days, Elijah Cade would learn that the dead could return. And they remembered everything. The first 2 days of the retreat passed in careful tension. The twins attended meetings, took notes, performed their roles flawlessly. Elijah gave speeches about innovation and company values. Victor Hale watched everything with calculating eyes. Senior staff networked and drank expensive wine and never noticed the 2 young men moving through the background like shadows. On December 14th, the weather changed. Snow began falling heavily, the same kind of storm that had buried the mountains 15 years ago. The coordinator announced that the outdoor team-building activities were canceled. Instead, the final night's dinner would be moved to the Summit Lodge, a smaller venue higher on the mountain, accessible only by shuttle. Perfect, Micah muttered. The Summit Lodge was isolated, dramatic, and exactly where they needed to be. That afternoon, while staff prepared for the evening event, the twins slipped away. They followed the trail they'd mapped from historical records, the service road where Harper had found them. The path was covered in new snow, but the landscape underneath hadn't changed. The rocks, the trees, the small clearing. They found it together, the place where they'd nearly died. Mateo sank to his knees in the snow. This is it. This is where he left us. Micah stood beside him, one hand on his twin's shoulder. This is where Harper found us. This is where everything changed. They stayed there for 10 minutes, letting the past wash over them, letting the fury solidify into determination. Then they stood, brushed off the snow, and walked back to prepare for the evening. The Summit Lodge glowed against the darkness, chandeliers blazing through floor-to-ceiling windows. 50 people gathered inside, executives, senior managers, select junior staff. Waiters circulated with champagne. A pianist played soft classical music. Elijah Cade stood at the center, holding court, looking every inch the visionary leader. Micah and Mateo entered separately, keeping distance between them, not drawing attention. They'd wired themselves with recording devices hidden in their shirts. Tom Brightwater was positioned outside in a rented SUV, monitoring their signals, ready to call authorities if needed. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Elijah talked about the company's bright future, thanking everyone for their dedication. Victor Hale
proposed a toast. The wine flowed. The room buzzed with comfortable conversation.
At 9 p.m., the coordinator announced a surprise presentation. We have something special tonight. 2 of our junior staff members have prepared a retrospective on Cade Industries' history and values. Micah and Mateo stood, their hearts hammered in sync. This was it. They moved to the front of the room, where a screen had been set up. Mateo opened his laptop, connecting to the projector. The first slides showed company milestones, acquisitions, growth charts. Perfectly professional, perfectly expected. Cade Industries has an incredible story, Mateo began, his voice steady. Built on innovation, sustainability, and personal dedication. But every company has a founding story, Micah continued. And sometimes those stories aren't quite what they seem. The next slide appeared. 2 small boys in navy jackets. The title, Micah and Mateo Cade, a tragedy that built an empire. The room went quiet. Elijah's face tensed. Victor Hale set down his wine glass, suddenly alert. In December 2010, these twins disappeared during a family retreat at this very lodge, Mateo said. They were 6 years old. They had a rare medical condition. They were expensive to keep alive. The next slide showed insurance documents. $18 million in life insurance, updated 6 months before they died. Elijah stood. What is this? Who authorized? Please sit down, Mr. Cade, Micah said. We're not finished. The audio file played. Victor Hale's voice filled the room, calm and businesslike, discussing sedatives and positioning, and hypothermia and insurance payouts. Then Elijah's voice. We're clear. The room erupted. Gasps, shocked murmurs, someone's wine glass shattering on the floor. Elijah's face went white. Victor Hale moved toward the door, but hotel security had been alerted and stood blocking the exits. This is insane, Elijah said. This is fabricated. It's archived in your company's servers, Micah said, along with financial records showing the insurance payout went directly to saving Cade Industries from bankruptcy. And this. Genetic test results appeared on screen. DNA evidence from Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, archived from Alessandra Cade's pregnancy. Genetic markers for her twin sons. The final slide appeared. Side-by-side photos, the Cade twins from 2010, and current photos of Micah and Mateo Quinn. The resemblance was undeniable. We didn't die in that storm, Mateo said. We were found by Harper Quinn, a search and rescue volunteer who carried us down the mountain and saved our lives. She knew what you'd done. She knew you'd walked away and left us to freeze. So she kept us. For 15 years, we've been alive, Micah continued. Growing up, learning, remembering pieces of what happened. And when we finally discovered the truth, we decided to come home. Hello, Father, they said in unison. Elijah staggered backward, gripping a table for support. His
face cycled through emotions. Shock, denial, recognition, terror. No, No, that's impossible. You're dead. Mateo smiled coldly.
We were supposed to be. You made sure of that. Sedatives from Dr. Rhodes, a convenient storm. A location where bodies wouldn't be found until spring. You collected our insurance money and built this empire on our corpses. Someone in the crowd had started filming. Phones were out, recording everything. Victor Hale finally moved, lunging toward Mateo, but Tom Brightwater had entered through the side door with local police.
Victor Hale, Elijah Cade, you're under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy.
The officer's voice cut through the chaos. Elijah wasn't looking at the police. He was staring at the twins, his sons, alive and grown and radiating justified fury.
I didn't know,
he whispered.
I didn't know you'd survive. I thought.
You thought you'd gotten away with it, Micah said. You thought we'd stay buried. But we didn't. And now the whole world knows what you are. The video had already started spreading. Someone in the room had live-streamed the entire presentation. Within minutes, it was viral. The billionaire who'd murdered his sons for insurance money. The twins who'd returned from the dead to expose him. The company built on blood money and lies. Elijah crumbled, his carefully constructed image shattering like ice. As police led him out in handcuffs, he looked back at Micah and Mateo one last time. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I was desperate. The company was failing. You were dying anyway. I thought. You thought money was worth more than your children, Mateo said. You were wrong. The police took him away. Victor Hale was screaming about lawyers. The crowd was chaos, everyone talking at once, trying to process what they'd witnessed. The twins stood together, hands clasped, feeling 15 years of running and hiding and suffering finally lift from their shoulders. They'd done it. They'd brought him down. They'd exposed the truth. Harper's voice crackled through their earpieces. Boys, are you okay? We're okay, Mum, Micah said softly. It's over. It's finally over. Come home, Harper said, her voice thick with tears. Come home, now. They walked out of the summit lodge together, leaving behind the wreckage of their father's empire, stepping into snow that felt cleaner than it had 15 years ago. The mountain that had almost killed them was quiet now, peaceful, as if the land itself could finally rest. Behind them, sirens wailed. Ahead, freedom waited. The trial dominated headlines for 8 months. Elijah Cade and Victor Hale faced charges of attempted murder, insurance fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy. Dr. Isaiah Rhodes was extradited from the Cayman Islands to testify, accepting immunity in exchange for detailed testimony about the sedatives he'd prescribed and the plan he'd helped orchestrate. The evidence was overwhelming. The voice,
Recording. The financial documents. The DNA tests proving Micah and Mateo Quinn were the supposedly dead Cade twins. Harper's testimony about finding them and the tracks she'd followed. Tom Brightwater's statements about the suspicious circumstances and subsequent cover-up. Elijah's defense tried arguing duress, mental breakdown, impossible circumstances. His lawyers painted a picture of a desperate father watching his children die slowly, drowning in medical debt, making one terrible decision in a moment of crisis. The jury didn't buy it. The planning, the insurance policies, the coordination with Hale and Rhodes, it all pointed to premeditated attempted murder for financial gain. Victor Hale turned on Elijah immediately, claiming he'd been following orders, that he'd objected but been overruled. The recordings proved otherwise. Both men were convicted. Elijah Cade received 30 years. Victor Hale received 25. Dr. Rhodes received 15. None would be eligible for parole for at least a decade. The civil suits followed. The insurance companies sued for return of the $18 million with interest, awarded damages that totaled $34 million. Creditors circled Cade Industries like sharks. Within 6 months, the company declared bankruptcy. Assets were liquidated. The empire built on blood money crumbled to dust. The twins didn't attend the sentencing. They'd done what they came to do: expose the truth. They had no interest in watching their father be led away in chains. That was for the courts to handle. Instead, they focused on rebuilding. Harper finally got to rest. The medical debt that had crushed her for 15 years was paid off through victim restitution funds. The twins made sure of it. She sold the small house in Clarkston and moved to a quiet cabin in Asheville, North Carolina, with a garden and mountain views and peace she'd never known. "You gave us everything," Micah told her the day she moved. "Let us give you this." "You already have," Harper said, pulling them both into a fierce hug. "You survived. That's all I ever wanted." The twins enrolled at MIT, using their real names now: Micah Cade and Mateo Cade. The media attention was intense at first, but eventually faded as new stories emerged. They became normal students, brilliant but no longer burdened by secrets. They studied computer science and business, using their talents for good. In their sophomore year, they launched the Cade Quinn Foundation. Named for both families, the organization provided financial assistance to families struggling with children's rare medical conditions. They used what remained of the restitution money, combined with donations from people moved by their story. "We know what it's like," Mateo explained at the foundation's launch event. "We know what it means to watch your parents struggle, to feel like your existence is a burden, to wonder if you're worth keeping alive. No child should ever feel that. And no parent should have to choose between their child's life and financial survival," Micah added. "So we're going to help however we can." The foundation grew quickly. Within 5 years, it was supporting 200 families across the country. They partnered with medical research facilities, funded experimental treatments, and advocated for healthcare reform. The twins maintained their unique bond, that supernatural connection that had kept them alive through everything. They still finished each other's sentences, still felt each other's emotions, still shared dreams sometimes. But the nightmares had stopped. The snow dreams, the man walking away, the cold terror, all of it had faded once they'd confronted the source. They visited Harper often, spending holidays in her Asheville cabin, bringing friends and eventually partners to meet the woman who'd saved them. She always introduced herself the same way. "I'm Harper Quinn. I'm their mother. And I'd do it all again." Dr. Rhodes, serving his sentence, sent them a letter once. "I was a coward. I should have refused. I should have reported it. I chose money over morality, and 2 children nearly died because of me. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I think about you every day. I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you won." They never responded. Some apologies couldn't be accepted. Victor Hale never expressed remorse. He maintained in interviews that he'd been a loyal employee, following orders, nothing more. The twins didn't think about him much. He was a footnote in their story, not a chapter. Elijah was different. He wrote them letters regularly from prison, letters they didn't read at first. Harper held on to them, saying, "Someday you might want to know what he has to say. Or you might not. Either way is okay." 5 years after the trial, on the anniversary of the confrontation, Micah opened one of the letters.
Mateo sat beside him. They read together. Micah and Mateo. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did was unforgivable. I chose money over your lives. I chose my empire over my children. I walked away from you in the snow and convinced myself it was necessary, that you were dying anyway, that I was being merciful by ending it quickly. I lied to myself for 15 years. I built a life on your deaths and never let myself remember your faces. I don't know if you believe in God or redemption or second chances. I'm not sure I do anymore. But I want you to know that every day in here, I think about the moment I walked away. I think about what your mother would say if she'd known. Alessandra loved you more than anything. She died bringing you into the world, and I repaid her sacrifice by trying to erase you from it. You were right about everything. Money wasn't worth your lives. Nothing was worth your lives. I wish I'd understood that before it was too late. I'm proud of who you've become, the foundation you've built, the lives you've changed, the courage you've shown. You're better men
At 25 than I ever was at 55. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for exposing me. Thank you for being living proof that children are worth fighting for. Your father, Elijah. Mateo finished reading and set the letter down. How do you feel? I don't know, Micah admitted. Angry. Sad. Relieved, maybe, that he finally sees it. Does it change anything? No. Micah looked at his twin. He's still the man who tried to kill us. Understanding why doesn't erase what he did. So we keep living, Mateo said. We keep building our lives. We keep helping other kids. And we let him sit with what he destroyed. Yeah. Micah stood, holding out his hand. Come on. Harper's making dinner. Said she's got something special planned. They drove to Asheville together, windows down, music playing. Two brothers who'd survived the unsurvivable and built something beautiful from the wreckage. The mountains rose around them, no longer threatening but just landscape, just earth and stone and snow. Harper greeted them at the door with her biggest smile, older now, but finally peaceful. They ate together, talking about everything and nothing, about the Foundation's latest success and the hiking trip they were planning, and the completely mundane joys of being alive and free and loved. As night fell, they sat on Harper's porch, watching stars emerge over the Asheville peaks. Micah and Mateo sat close, shoulders touching, that twin connection humming between them like a song. Do you ever think about how different everything could have been? Mateo asked quietly. If Harper hadn't been watching? If she'd been 5 minutes later? Every day, Micah said. But we weren't 5 minutes later. She was there. She saved us. And we survived. We more than survived, Mateo corrected. We won. Harper joined them, sitting between her sons, her arms around both. You did more than win. You changed lives. You exposed corruption. You built something meaningful. You turned your trauma into triumph. We learned from the best, Micah said, leaning into her embrace. They sat in comfortable silence as the mountain night deepened around them. Somewhere in New York, a prison held a man who'd tried to murder his children. Somewhere in California, families were receiving foundation grants that would save their children's lives. Somewhere in memory, two small boys in navy jackets reached out in the snow and found hands reaching back. But here, now, in this moment, three people who'd chosen each other, who'd survived impossible odds, who'd fought for justice and won,
simply existed together in peace. "I love you both," Harper said. "We love you too, Mom," the twins replied in unison. The stars blazed overhead, the mountains stood eternal, and the boys who were supposed to die lived on, bright and brilliant and free, proving that sometimes the dead do return, and when they do, they bring justice with them. The story could end there, but really, it was just beginning. Because
Micah and Mateo Cade Quinn had learned something their father never understood. That children aren't commodities. That family is chosen, not just given. That survival isn't enough when you can thrive instead. They would spend the rest of their lives proving that truth, and they would do it together. Two halves of one whole. Brothers in blood and trauma and triumph, forever connected by the bond that even death couldn't break. The billionaire who abandoned his dying twins had failed. The twins who refused to stay dead had won. And somewhere in the Colorado Rockies, snow fell clean on the clearing where two boys had nearly died, covering old sins with new snow, letting the mountain finally rest. If you found this story powerful, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs to hear about the triumph of justice over greed. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and tell us, what would you do if you discovered you'd been abandoned as a child? Drop your thoughts below.